What up, gang? Tiger Mike here. Alright, so I'm getting to the game a little late this week because I've been traveling since Monday. I was preparing to travel the weekend over the weekend. I did a video for episode 5, chapter 13, The Jedi. I just didn't like how it came out. I didn't really prep anything well enough, and it just, I just didn't have time to put into it what I wanted it to be. So instead, what I'm going to do is just give you two of my big theories based on this episode. So we learned two really important things. One, that the child's name is Grogu, and that he was trained at the Jedi Temple. So if he is 50 years old when the Mandalorian finds him, then that means he's 10 during the events of the Phantom Menace. Now, who else is around during the events of the Phantom Menace? Oh, that's right, Yaddle. And a lot of people are like, hey, everybody, don't forget about Yaddle. And I think it is very plausible that Yoda and Yaddle had Grogu, because George Lucas was very specific about people not writing anything about Yoda's species or his backstory or where they were from or anything like that for the expanded universe back in the day. He was nobody can tackle this subject. You can only write what has been exposed about Yoda that you know, or that you think Yoda would say in a scenario, based on what we know about Yoda. So, based on that, and then Yaddle appears in the Phantom Menace, and now Grogu has apparently been trained in the Jedi Temple by multiple masters. Now, why is the multiple masters important? Because as far as we know, you have students that take lessons from multiple masters when they're very young, like under 10 years old, but they usually, once they come of age to become a Padawan, are taken under the wing of a master or a knight who then trains them permanently. So when you ask a Jedi, who was your master, they are going to say the master that trained them primarily. So if Grogu was around until the end of the Clone Wars, then that would have been another almost 20 years of him being trained, because there's almost 10 years between the Phantom Menace and episode 2, and then likewise episode 2 and episode 3, I think, are maybe 5 years apart or so. So if Grogu was at the temple that entire 15 years and had multiple masters, then it was probably because they didn't want him to develop attachments, because as a younger child, he's going to be much more... Obviously, this species doesn't mature very quickly. So to have a permanent master would probably create an attachment, like a parent figure, that they didn't want to do. So Yoda and Yaddle, probably knowing this from their own, knowing their own species like they would, or at least knowing what they remember from growing up, would probably say, okay, we need to keep the rotation up. We need to make sure that this child does not become attached to any one person, but is a member of the Jedi and feels like part of that family in a greater sense. So that, because obviously it's funny, but there was a lot of hypocrisies of the Jedi Order. One was attachment to the Order. If you're not supposed to have attachments, how are you going to be so attached to your Order, huh? Isn't that an attachment? Yeah, think about it. Anyway, so it's my opinion that, speaking of attachments, everyone's like, well, Yoda and Yaddle wouldn't have had a child because that's forbidden. And having a child is not forbidden, especially if it could be the last child of the species or the only hope for the species to continue. Like, we have no idea what the backstory of this species is. It could be that that increased population was something that they really needed to do. There aren't any of them that we see, so it's possible they're from the unknown regions, or that they're a member of the Republic in some sense, but we just don't see them, so maybe there's not a lot of them around. So it doesn't mean that they were married or in love or anything. It could have been a very surrogate kind of platonic situation where they're like, hey, we just need to ensure the continuation of our species. We have to have a kid. Jedi Order is not going to say no to that, especially when both of them are masters in the Jedi Council at the time of the Phantom Menace. So, I mean, they both probably had a lot of clout. Let's just put it that way. So my theory is that Grogu, the child, is Yoda's baby. But we'll see how that plays out. Anyway, so what you have to wonder is, don't you think Yoda would kind of be like, where's my fucking son? Or do you think he would have assumed that the Grogu was killed during the Purge? So, you know, there's a lot of questions still up in the air, but the possibility exists that Yoda and Yaddle were the parents of Grogu. So maybe it was part of the lack of attachment that they're like, okay, this is the plan. Now we're going to have to step out because we don't want to become emotionally attached to our child who is supposed to be trained as a Jedi. So that might be a reason why they wouldn't have been like, where's Yaddle and where's Grogu when Yoda went into exile. So anyway, theory number 2. We learn at the end of the episode that Thrawn is back. So this is a whole big WTF moment because as far as we know, Thrawn should be dead. So at the end of Rebels, Ezra Bridger is on the bridge of Admiral Thrawn's Star Destroyer.
Whatever happens next happens to both of us.
That's the idea.
With Admiral Thrawn there. And he calls on the Per guy through a communication system, and he reaches out in the Force. So they come out of nowhere, out of left field, and attack Thrawn's fleet of Star Destroyers, basically like disabling all of them. Then they connect to them, and the Per guy have a unique ability to travel through hyperspace naturally by consuming the gas that is refined into hyperspace fuel. But they do it naturally. So they're able to travel through hyperspace. So they attach themselves to the Star Destroyer. They also broke into the bridge and like smashed all the windows up and were grabbing Thrawn and restraining him. So the bridge is going to be exposed to space when they jump into hyperspace. And that should kill both Ezra and Thrawn and whoever else was on the bridge and still alive at that point. So it's so that Grand Admiral Thrawn is still alive is just like, what the fuck? So if Grand Admiral Thrawn's alive, then Ezra Bridger's probably alive too. But how? So there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, well, the Star Destroyers went into the unknown regions. There's no evidence that they went into the unknown regions. Hera has no idea where they went. They tried to track them on their last trajectory. We don't get an answer to where they go. And it's my belief that Ezra, so after he does this, he leaves a message with Chopper before he does this that Chopper plays after. Chopper is like the R2-D2 of Rebels. And so he plays this message from Ezra, and Ezra says to Sabine Wren, who's a Mandalorian, I'm counting on you. And she thinks that means taking care of Lothal, so she does that, and the Empire never comes back, and then the Empire is taken down in, you know, the end of Return of the Jedi, and so they're all like, oh, okay. So then at the very, very end of Rebels, Ahsoka returns to get Sabine on Lothal, and then they go to find Ezra Bridger. So earlier in Rebels, there's an episode where Ezra enters a world between worlds with the help of Sabine and her interpretation of the art and what the significance of everything was. Now, this mural was on Lothal and was under the Jedi Temple that was destroyed earlier and all this other stuff. So the Empire came in and excavated it, and they found this mural which depicted the father, the son, and the daughter of Mortis, which is a callback to an arc in the Clone Wars where Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka go to Mortis, which is this hidden Force world. Anyway, super awesome episodes. But long story short, Sabine knows how to access the portals because she helped Ezra do it. So using that knowledge, she could help Ahsoka enter a different portal into the World Between Worlds. What the World Between Worlds is it's essentially a giant series of walkways that that have paths off to multiple different spots in space-time in the history and the future of the Star Wars universe. So when Ezra enters, he hears all these voices of the future and the past, and these are quotes that we know from the Star Wars movies, from the original trilogy, from the prequel trilogies. So it's obviously the future and the past, because at this point in Ezra's timeline, it's several years before the events of the Battle of Yavin in A New Hope.
Truly wonderful the mind of a child is.
What is this place?
A conduit through which the entire force of the universe flows.
Luminous beings, Zoe, not this fruit
Just when you think you understand the Force, you find out how little you actually know.
Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose.
What you need, you already have. Unfortunately, you seem to be letting it all go.
I won't let him lose his way. Not like I did.
The Force is what gives the Jedi its power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together.
So in the World Between Worlds, Ezra's walking around, and he sees through one of these portals Ahsoka battling Darth Vader and about to lose. So at the end of season 2, I believe, in Rebels, is when this battle takes place in Ezra's past. He is there during those events, and he was escaping with Kanan, and Ezra's master Kanan, and Ahsoka was like, you go, I'll hold him off. And they were in this big Sith weapon, which was self-destructing.
What? What can I do?
Ezra, in the World Between Worlds, sees that Ahsoka's about to lose and then pulls her through this portal, so removing her from her timeline. So in the World Between Worlds, Ezra pulls Ahsoka in, and she's like, Ezra, what is going on? And he kind of explains to her that they didn't know what happened to her after that battle on Moribund. So, and of the Sith Temple on Moribund, that was the last time they had seen her. So she goes, okay, well, where the heck are we? And he's like, I don't know. So they're walking around, and she's kind of like, okay, this is nuts. We probably should not be here. And then they see a portal with Kanan in it. Kanan had sacrificed himself earlier to save everybody in the crew, including Ezra, force holding an explosion back at the same time as he was pushing the crew and their ship away. So Ezra wants to do the same thing he did with Ahsoka and pull Kanan through. And Ahsoka's like, whoa, 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 if you do that, you're going to die. And everyone else on the crew is going to die. So then how would you be standing here? We don't know what's going to happen if you do that, and you know that Kanan sacrificed himself for all of you. He would not want you to do that and risk everything by doing so.
I'm sorry, Ezra, but you must see. Kanan found the moment when he was needed most, and he did what he had to do. For everyone.
That's the lesson. I didn't see it, but now...
So Ezra's like sad, but he's like, fine, alright. And then all of a sudden, there's some dark force magic, and this smoke appears, and we hear the voice of Palpatine, and he tries to get them with the smoke, and he's probably trying to break into the world between worlds. Or, at the very least, corrupt Ezra and Ahsoka.
Ezra Bridger and Ashoka Tano. Mine at last.
So giving Palpatine access to the world between worlds is an absolute no. So Ahsoka's like, all right, you go out the way you came in, I'll go out the way you pulled me through, and everything should be fine. So that's what happens. Ahsoka goes back to Moribond in like seconds after she had fought Vader, and then Ahsoka goes into you see her walking into this cave and into Moribond, presumably to probably find the ship that Maul initially arrived on, because Maul had been waiting there for Ezra to arrive to help him with his goals. Anyway, go watch the episode, it's awesome. But also, Ahsoka knows that she has to lie low until she catches up to the point that Ezra was in when he pulled her out, because he had not seen her until that moment. So if she goes and interferes with things, that could potentially change. So she didn't want to mess with any of that, so she lies low. So why is all of this important? Basically, this is how Sabine and Ahsoka are going to save Ezra. So if Sabine shows Ahsoka how to enter it by saying, okay, this is what all these things mean, then Ahsoka, using the Force, can interact with the mural like Ezra did and open another portal. Ahsoka can go into the world between worlds. Now that Palpatine's not a threat and isn't going to work his Dark Force magic, because presumably he's dead, at the very least, he's just in some disfigured clone body. So basically, Ahsoka will be able to pull Ezra out of that moment when the Purgi go into hyperspace. Now, it's my theory that Thrawn, so all of this is a theory, but it's also my theory that Thrawn will see Ezra disappear and either break free of the tentacles and grab hold of Ezra and get pulled into the world between worlds with him, or break free of the tentacles and jump through that portal, because Ezra being pulled through would have opened it up so that Thrawn could have followed him through. So Ezra would have to go back to the moment he was taken out of, but he doesn't have to go back to the same place. So it's possible he could have gone back to Lothal and just laid low, and then kind of gotten out of the way and maybe left the planet when everything was clear, and then lay low until he catches up to the events when Ahsoka and Sabine go into the world between worlds to save him. Then it's safe for him to return and resurface into the galactic fold, if you will, and start actually interacting with events and going on, and being an influential member of the galaxy, if you will. So Thrawn, on the other hand, probably isn't gonna do that. Thrawn wouldn't, first of all, necessarily know to do that, or necessarily what's going on, but my thought is that he would probably end up following Ahsoka back. If he does go through without actually grabbing onto Ezra, he might be able to do so stealthily, so they don't actually know that he's in there, and then follow Ahsoka back to the point in the present, in the Mandalorian era present, where it's post-Empire. Then, having returned and being just as capable as he's ever been, he will go find the Imperial remnant and then return to his Grand Admiral position, because they're desperate for people, and he is seriously one of the best tacticians in the known galaxy. So of the entire Imperial military, he was one of, if not the top tacticians. So it's probable that Moff Gideon outranks Admiral Thrawn. So how that interaction works, who works for who, also what Thrawn might have to do with the Dark Trooper program are all super interesting thoughts. So Filoni has this whole thing in Vanity Fair where he's describing, well, you know, the events at the end of Rebels might not be before this episode in Mandalorian. So he's like, oh, it's possible, who knows? But what he's saying is things aren't linear. And so I think he's alluding to the world between worlds when he says that things aren't linear and that it's a possibility. But it's just a possibility, because we'll see. So anyway, I just feel like it's not really possible for them to have survived a jump in hyperspace exposed, and that the world between worlds is the only real possibility for them to have escaped. So it'll be interesting to see who Grogu contacts through the Force and how all this plays out. But basically, I think he's about to get ambushed. I think Grogu and the Mandalorian are about to get ambushed by Moff Gideon. And it's possible that Thrawn will be behind it or involved in some sense. And essentially, Bo-Katan, Ahsoka Tano, and the Mandalorian are all going to have to team up and to take out the Dark Trooper program and protect Grogu and whoever Grogu contacts through the Force. So it's going to be really interesting. So I think everyone's like, oh, the Rosario Dawson spin-off show for Ahsoka Tano. They've already, I believe, confirmed that they're bringing back Star Wars Rebels. So if they're going to continue that story in an animation or live action, whatever, it's going to be through that storyline. So, I don't know what exactly that means for what it'll look like, but I'm pretty sure the storyline will be, we're going to come back to the Rebels crew with Hera. Hera has a son with Kanan, so he's probably Force sensitive. So there's that whole side of things. We have Luke Skywalker running out in the galaxy trying to find Force sensitive people right now, so it's possible he'll come into play. There's just a lot of things that are possible, but I wouldn't jump the gun and say there's going to be an Ahsoka Tano show. I would say it's probably going to be a Rebels show. Anyway, those are my theories for all this. We'll find out tomorrow when the new episode of Mandalorian airs. But anyway, if you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell for more. Don't forget I got the travel blog going, and I'll have more Mandalorian videos coming up. Now that I got my travel on the steady, I can plan out when to do work and stuff like that. So hopefully there won't be any more super long last minute, delays for videos like this. But we'll catch you next time. Tiger Mike signing out. This is The Way.
It's up to all of you now. And remember, the Force will be with you, always.